Welcome to Gauge by Test.com, a robust testing platform for companies of all sizes. In this video, we'll help you getting started on creating and editing a test with question banks in Gauge. First, let's take a look at how to create a question bank. You can find question banks by navigating to the Test tab under the Manage tab. Then, click Add New Question Bank to get started. Let's give our question bank a name, then click Add New Question Bank. If you've created a basic test or watched our video on how to create a basic test, this screen should look familiar. We're going to jump in right away and add a few questions. Let's start with a multiple choice question. We're going to bypass all of our options and go right down to the editor to add our first question. Then we're going to scroll down and add our answers and their corresponding values. Be sure to include a value for each answer. Remember, adding a value of 0 means it's an incorrect answer, and anything greater than 0 is the point value of the correct answer. Scroll down, click Create New Question. Now that we have a question bank created, let's create a test. Go back up to Tests, Add New Test, give our test a name. Then we'll make sure we have Test with Question Banks selected, and click Add New Test. If you've created a basic test or watched the video on how to create a basic test, you will notice that instead of a question tab, we have a question bank tab. We're going to click on that tab. Before we add our first question bank, notice there is a checkbox right here that lets you control your various options at the question bank level instead of at the test level. This gives you greater control over how users will experience taking the test. We'll come back to this in a minute. Now we're going to click on Add New Question Bank to include a couple in our test. And here you will see a list of question banks that are available to you, including the one we just created. And since we're creating a final lab safety exam, let's select both the basic lab safety exam and the advanced lab safety exam and click Pick Sections. And as you can see, our two question banks have been added. Now let's look at some of our test settings. Most of the options for a test with question banks are the same as a basic test. You can control time limits, question limits, the number of questions a test taker sees per test, question randomization, and more. These options all impact the entire test because we are currently editing options at the test level. But remember, we have the option to control settings at the question bank level. To do that, we'll go back up and click on the Question Banks tab. To set options for a question bank, click on the Edit icon for the question bank you want to edit. Next, you'll have to scroll down and find the section that says Override Section, Advanced Settings, and click the checkbox that says Override. Now, changing any of the following settings will only impact this question bank for this test only. In other words, each instant of a question bank across different tests can have its own settings. Let's click Save and move on. Lastly, we're going to take a quick look at our options for scoring and results, which are found under Options. One of the features of question banks is the ability to display results that are summarized by section. By default, results are not shown by section, but if we click on this drop-down, we can see that we have several options on how a test taker can view results that are organized by section, including options that display graphs with percentages. Let's choose an option to show a bar graph of percentage scored and a pass indicator. And as always, we'll click Save Changes. Alright, I'm going to take this test and show you what it looks like. But before I do that, I'm going to go to the options and click on this section right here, which means this will make it so that a user won't see which answers they got right or wrong. Then I'll go down and click Save Changes. And before we take our test, we're going to need to activate it. To do that, come back up to Parameters, go to Basic Settings, and find the checkbox that says Activated. Then come down and click Save Changes. With our test activated now, we can view it under the Take Test tab up here. We'll go to the Final Lap Safety Exam, and let's quickly take this test. Alright, let's see how we did. And as you can see, this is showing us how we did on each question. Number 7 is wrong, but we elected to show the test taker the correct answers so that we can see that we received 0 points for an incorrect answer. And that covers the basics of creating and editing a test with Question Banks Engage. Check out our other videos on how to create more advanced tests.